Liam Neeson still has a particular set of skills, but they're a little more old-timey in Marlowe. Let's talk about it now. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watcher Pass. Today I'm here to talk to you about Marlowe, which is coming to theaters on February 16th, 2023. It's a new Liam Neeson film, but it is not an action roller coaster like most of the films he's in. This is a 1930s era crime thriller. It has an old feel and it definitely has a noir kind of theme throughout. My hot take is, look, I think you should rent it. I liked seeing Neeson in this different role. He still plays kind of like a tough person, but he's more of an investigator in this one. And the film has a really great style. It looks fantastic. It has a pretty strong start, but then starts to lose steam towards the back half. And the ultimate kind of conclusion wasn't very fulfilling. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the film, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and talk briefly about the ending. So if you don't want to know what happens in this movie, I would turn it off at the ending section. I will be vague before that. I will not reveal spoilers before that, but I'll talk about the ending, so there will be spoilers there. I'll let you know, though. I will be very clear when that happens, so you can turn it off then, or keep going on this investigative journey. So, like I said, in Marlowe, Liam Neeson plays Marlowe, who is a very talented detective that has not had a ton of luck in life, but he is very good at his job. He kind of has connections. He's made some mistakes in the past. That's what you would expect in like a 1930s noir crime drama. And so he's hired by a glamorous heiress played by Diane Kruger, named Cavendish, who she needs him to track down a former lover of hers, this person named Nico Peterson. And so what initially starts off as a missing person type of investigation quickly gets a little deeper as Marlowe discovers more about what happened to Nico and like what the underlying things that he was involved in were. And so as you can imagine, in a 1930s crime drama, there are plenty of twists and turns and surprises. So things I liked about this movie. The first, I love the style. Like, this is a set in the 1930s. It definitely feels like it. They definitely go for that. It feels kind of like an LA noir, like the video game type of feel. Like the text is very like 1930s style. It's like thin yellow. It looks like what you would see in an old kind of movie. The film has like, I definitely put it through some sort of filter to give it this like bright technicolor look to it that I like. And it feels like it transports you back. Like, all the outfits are older, the cars are older, the music also kind of fits with the theme. The film definitely is dripping with style, and I really love that. That really caught me at the very start. Like, it has some nice bright colors at the start that really kind of get your attention. And the film definitely uses its style to draw you in and start off very strong. The second thing I liked is, look, the cast. This is a great cast. You've got Liam Neeson, who I'm always a fan of. I like seeing his movies. You've got Diane Kruger, you've got Jessica Lange, you've got Danny Huston, you've got Cole Meany. You have a really great cast that forms a wonderful nucleus for this film. And they do a good job kind of personifying these noir film characters. They're definitely going for like a stylistic approach. Having them on screen definitely helps with that. And the last thing I liked to an extent is the writing. There's some pretty fun writing in here. It's campy. It feels like it's straight out of another time, but there are some really fun lines. One of my favorites is there's a line when he's trying to like threaten Marlowe, but doing it in a very kind of like nonchalant, I don't know, respectful way. Like, he ends the conversation with something along the lines of like, I do like the way you aren't afraid when you should be. So I liked that. There's little hints here and there. The writing isn't great throughout, but there is enough like fun writing in here and some campy lines that will keep you entertained. So, things I didn't like as much about this movie. The first, the action, and there's not a ton of it, which is probably good. But it definitely feels like they pulled some punches with the action. There's a lot of cuts. There's a lot of like scenes where some like a fight will start off and then won't finish. And there's a lot of like very kind of, I don't know, obfuscated things. I don't know if it was budget or they didn't want to like focus on the action, or maybe, I noticed this in Liam Neeson's last movie, Memory. It doesn't seem like he is as kind of quick, at least on the action side, which makes sense. You're getting older, it happens. But I feel like they tried to use some shots to kind of play that down. And then as a result, the action isn't, intense. It isn't, something that's very exciting. It just kind of happens and it feels like it's over too soon. The second thing I didn't love is, we'll call it the romance. It's like a romance-ish kind of scene. It didn't actually last very long, but it felt very kind of like thrown in there. It felt like it came out of nowhere. It was a really weird scene to have, and it really kind of conflicted with some of the characters at the moment. So I didn't love that part, but thankfully it wasn't a very long scene and it didn't really seem to have much of an effect on the story. So it's not that big of a deal. The third thing I did not love is this film is described as a crime noir thriller, but it's not really that thrilling. And part of it could be because the action isn't really that great. Like there aren't that many action scenes and they are over very quickly. So you don't get that kind of thrills from that. And the film itself doesn't really have a sense of danger. Like Marlowe is a very competent person, but he never gets worried. He always seems to like know what's happening. And so I think as a result, maybe it's Liam Neeson's character, maybe it's just the way that the story is set up. You're never really afraid in this film. There's nothing like there's no real thriller aspect of this. It doesn't really feel like anyone's ever in any danger that you care about. So overall, it is a thriller that was not very thrilling, which also then made me kind of not be that entertained during the back half of the film. And the last thing I did not love is the ending. It's not really a great wrap up to what was initially an interesting mystery. They do kind of wrap things up, but I don't know, it felt almost like a cop out. I don't know. It felt like they were trying to go for a big surprise ending. And it didn't really hit me the way that I think they were hoping to. So, speaking of which, going to the ending, and if you don't want to know what happens in this film, I would turn it off now because I'm going to the ending. There will be spoilers. So, like I said, Marlowe is hired by Cavendish to investigate the disappearance of Nico Peterson. Now, Nico Peterson was Cavendish's lover, but you get a sense that maybe there's more going on here. Now, Marlowe initially finds out that Nico Peterson was killed in a like weird car accident outside this club, this like fancy establishment called the Corbata Club. He apparently like got hit by a car, his head was crushed. Seems like an open and shut case, but it's a crime thriller. It's never open and shut. So Cavendish then tells him like that can't be right because I saw him recently. And so now Marlowe is trying to figure out like what's going on? How do I track this person down? He keeps pulling on some threads and finds out more about like what happened with Nico Peterson and what happened with the connection to the Kobata Club and to the overall movie studio in general, because Nico Peterson was like a prop person. He was a kind of a prop specialist. And so he worked in this movie studio. Cavendish is an heiress, and her mother is having a relationship with this person they call the ambassador. He's the head of this movie studio. I think it was like Pacific Pictures. But he has recently been appointed the ambassador to England. And so there is this like power dynamic and this studio that keeps coming up throughout this investigation. So what you find out at the very end, when the mystery is fully revealed, you find out that Nico Pearson is alive. He actually comes to Marlowe, kind of like essentially saying, hey, like you've been looking for me, I'm here. And he wants Cavendish to meet him at the prop house in the movie studio that night. You're like, okay, weird, but okay. When Cavendish gets there, you find out that Nico Peterson was moving drug product through the movie studios. He was working for this local gangster named Lou Hendricks. And so he would get the product from Mexico, hide it in movie studio props and then move it through the studio. And I guess this was with full knowledge of the ambassador slash movie studio head. And what Nico had done was he had kept records of everything he had moved. And so he had this briefcase full of all the records of the products that had gone through the studio. His big plan was he was going to sell this briefcase to someone to then, I guess, blackmail the ambassador, or maybe just blackmail the ambassador directly. And you're like, okay, that's weird. It's like, okay, well, that's, that seems fairly sinister, but this is a pretty complex plot for that. But I guess with this briefcase, like that could bring down the ambassador's career. He's just about to kind of like transcend movies and get into, I guess the political sphere. He's going to become the ambassador to England. He's really kind of rising in power. So this could derail him. So he tells this to his lover, Cavendish, and then that is when Marlowe shows up. He had been tailing them. He shows up at the prop warehouse. Nico sees him, turns and like tries to shoot him. He misses. But then Nico gets shot by Cavendish, his lover, who had been looking for him. You're like, whoa, that's weird. And then she shoots him a couple times. And she explains basically that like she had been looking for him to get this briefcase because she wanted she was working for the ambassador, maybe in a relationship, but I think it's more of a power relationship. And so she had to kill Nico Peterson so that this information would never come out. And then she sets fire to Nico Peterson's corpse in the prop house and burns all the documents. So everything is going to go away. Oh, and during the fire, there is some pretty bad CG, which was surprising because most of the film didn't seem to have much CG. I think it was the smoke. It could have been my screener, but I think it was the CG in the smoke. So I didn't want to bring that as a main point, but that was something else I noticed. And Marlowe sees this and he just kind of like sits there and doesn't say anything and doesn't do anything. I guess his client is Cavendish, and so he's not going to go against his client. But basically, that is the big surprise. That's the big reveal. You then find out a few months later that Cavendish is now running Pacific Studios or Pacific Pictures, whatever they call it. She's kind of like the boss in charge. That was the, I guess, agreement with the ambassador that if she was able to make this thing go away, he would promote her to run the studio. And she's doing a great job. She's a smart person. She brings in Marlowe to like essentially offer him a job as their like head of security. And for some reason, Marlowe doesn't take the job. I don't really know why. I guess maybe he likes his independence. Maybe he doesn't want to be like tied in with the system, even though he essentially like covered up a crime. So Marlowe declines the job. He recommends his friend Cedric, who we met through earlier interactions. He was a driver for Lou Hendricks. So he'd helped Marlowe escape from an earlier situation. So I think, you know, they'd become friends. He'd helped Marlowe in the rest of the investigation. And so now maybe Marlowe was helping him out, getting him a job. And so he tells him about the job, says he'll recommend him, and then also then gives him the gun that Cavendish shot Nico Peterson with. And he says, you might need this. I don't know if he's like using it to say like, have this in case you need to ever blackmail her, or if he's just saying you need a gun, here you go. And so they kind of end having a little bit of a chit chat, and that's the end of the movie. I guess Marlowe's going to go back to being a private eye and doing his thing, and movies are still going to get made, and Cedric is going to now be a head of security, theoretically, of that movie theater. So there you go. That is Marlowe. Like I said, it had a really great start. I loved the style. I loved the way the movie felt, and the mystery at the start was pretty interesting. That kind of lost steam with me as the film progressed. It's a pretty long movie. It's an hour and 50 minutes, and so it kind of like felt like it dragged on as the mystery kind of deepened and they kept throwing more wrenches in there. So check it out if you want to. The movie's in theaters on February 16th, 2023. Let me know what I got wrong, or let me know if I was right. And thanks so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.